I'll get it here in a minute. Wake up, girl. What up, nerds? My name is Leslie Smith. Welcome to the Nerdy Narrative, and today I'm going to review my weekly reads. Just a quick recap of what I'm reading, what I read, and what I plan to read next. Not in that order. I am not quite awake yet. It has been such a struggle this morning. Starting with the short stories I read this week out of Stephen King's Night Shift collection, I read I Know What You Need. I feel that I have certain expectations when it comes to reading Stephen King, and that expectation got in the way of the ending for this particular short story for me. That's all I'm gonna say, and I'm going to try and do a better job of not having any expectations going in when I read him, because all that's really doing is setting me up for failure. Because one thing I really should have learned by now about Stephen King is he rarely does what you expect him to. I've also been continuing my participation in Flannery O'January by reading a few short stories out of her Complete Stories collection. I read A Stroke of Good Fortune and A Good Man Is Hard to Find. Both of them were top-notch 5-star reads, just absolutely excellent, completely unexpected. And one of them, if you had not told me it was Flannery, I would have guessed it was a Stephen King short story. It was just absolutely nothing short of amazing. I believe the first stories that I read were her first works, and now I'm further into her career and I really like the direction she took. I also read The Hay Bale by Priscilla Bettis, and I read this on my Kindle. The other night, my friend Crystal from the channel Fiber Artsy messaged in Brad Proctor's Discord that she had read this story, absolutely loved it. I believe the majority of us just went and immediately downloaded the story and read it. It's a really great folklore, folk tale with a twist of Southern Gothic to it. I enjoyed it very much. I'm just one of those that when you take normal things, like the title is The Hay Bale, you take a hay bale, something normal that I've never thought about twice, and you write a story like this, and I can tell you guys, I know myself, the next time I'm anywhere near a hay bale, I'm not going to take my eyes off of it. I'm going to skirt a wide path around it. That's all I'm going to tell you about that. And then the final story that I ended with is the second episode of A Mini Tale, which is a cosmic fantasy serial that you can find online at aminitale.com. I'll have that link in the description box down below, but I continued with episode 2, which is called Unfortunate Company. So in the first episode, we meet our main character, Opaline. He is a mouseling who has a curse upon him, and that is he never gets to stay in one place indefinitely. There's a curse in which he blips from world to world, universe to universe, time, space. There seems to be no limit to when and where he can go, and he has zero control over it. Only thing he knows is he has a little spinning top, and every time he blips, that top tells him about how long he will be there. And so in episode 2, Unfortunate Company, we meet another one of Opaline's companions. I use the word loosely because I'm not exactly sure what this guy actually is. I just know he is under the same curse as Opaline, and they don't seem to get along too well. The thing that jumped out at me the most in this particular episode are giant fanged penguins. You want to read it now too, don't you? It's worth it. Of course, if you would like to know more about any of these short stories, I'm going to send you on over to my Instagram. Every day I read a short story, I post a little picture of it and 2 or 3 sentences of my experience with it. I also finished The Bone Maker by Sarah Beth Durst. This one really, really shocked me as far as how much I enjoyed it by the time I got to the end of it. When I started it, a few chapters in, I was like, okay, this is a solid 3.5, low 4-star read for me. By the time that I finished, it was an absolute solid 4-star type of read. I really enjoyed it. I cannot wait to read more by her. I will absolutely be continuing reading Sarah Beth Durst. I have her Queens of Renthia trilogy that is next on my list of stuff I want to read by her. But I really loved it. There are so many different elements that just alone are good, like the camaraderie, the friendship of our 5 heroes that are in this story. I also like the different types of bone workers, bone makers, bone wizards, bone readers. I was just really fascinated in how each of those worked. And then there were new things discovered about those types of professions as we read more. They were also organized. There was a bone guild that they belonged to. There were rules. There were things that were forbidden. It was just very unique how it worked and just the magic that was involved with it. And there were so many different ways it could be used. That was just really fun to discover as I read through. I'll be really honest with you. A few chapters in, I'm like, this is giving me young adult vibes, meaning it's a fast, fun, easy read. And I also thought this is predictable. I know exactly what's going to happen. And I was right. I predicted what was going to happen in just the next couple of chapters because everything I predicted did come to pass in those next couple of chapters. And then all of it changed. We got a whole other, the scope widen when the things that I predicted were going to happen. I just thought they were going to happen at the end of the book. No, that happened right away, and it triggered another event, and that changed, and I never was able to figure out what was going on and why. I never got it. And so that totally changed the experience for me. I loved the group. I loved the friendship, their dynamic. It felt real. It felt genuine. I loved that the emotions and how these characters reacted to one another in the situations that they were in just felt very, very real to me, and I just really enjoyed that. I was never bored. There was a lot of action, and I was really sad when it was over. I mean, I know I've been talking about, oh man, this is a great standalone fantasy novel. You just have the one, but I'm upset about that. I would really have loved to read more from this group or had it in a trilogy or another 400 pages, you know, just whatever, just more. I wasn't ready for it to be over. So needless to say, I really enjoyed The Bone Maker. Now, that's my only book I completed this week. I did work on Assassin's Apprentice by Robin Hobb. This one is a reread for me, and I am enjoying it so much more on the reread. I am a little bit disappointed in myself. The first time I read this book, there were a few events that I fixated on, and I was so fixated on the sadness and the anger I felt at those events that I completely missed other things that were happening. This time around, I am so much more connected to the main character, Fitz, and just really tapping in to his emotions, how alone he is, the coping mechanism of Fitz after each particular thing that he goes through, whether he forms an attachment or semi-forms an attachment and then it's ripped away or something happens, and his way of coping and to keep moving forward. It really, really makes me think about Viktor E. Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning, where Dr. Frankl, his view was man doesn't necessarily feel his primary concern is searching for pleasure. It is for finding meaning and how you cope with suffering. You're not trying to avoid suffering. You're trying to learn how to cope with it and keep moving forward. And that is exactly what I feel that Fitz is illustrating in Assassin's Apprentice. Excellent book. So glad that I reread it before continuing on in the realm of the Elderlings. I did go ahead and start The Wisdom of Crowds by Joe Abercrombie, the last book in First Law. I've got 100 pages in, and wow, there is a lot going on. This one is going to be extremely bloody, I do believe. There is still a couple of really funny moments that I've had so far in here. Not quite the number I'm used to from these characters, so I'm a little concerned. The lack of humor that I'm used to seeing from the characters and how bloody it is and the things that have happened. I mean, is Joe Abercrombie about to wipe out all of my friends here? I'm concerned, but I've really enjoyed what I've read so far. So that takes care of all the short stories I've read, what I finished, what I'm currently reading. let's talk about what I'm going to read next. I will this time for sure be diving into Stephen Graham Jones' Night of the Mannequins, because I kind of messed myself up because I'm reading 2 fantasy novels right now, and I don't usually try to read 2 of the same genre at once. So once I finish one, I'm going to put this one in because my other 2 reads that I want to get done this month are also fantasy. So that's why I will be going with Night of the Mannequins. The other book I need to get read is Remina by Junji Ito. I was going to save it for next month, but my library was like, hey, don't forget that's due in a few days. So I've got to get on this one because I want to get it read before I return it. Otherwise, I'll have to get back in line. But I really have enjoyed going through Junji Ito's work. He's one that I love his stories as well as his art. I just find no fault in either one. His stories are very weird, but they're thought-provoking. You do not forget them. I read Uzumaki in October, and I still, every time I see a spiral, it makes me pause. And I remember that story. So that story, I feel, is just going to be absolutely unforgettable to me. Was it the best story I've ever read in my life? No. Was it unique and interesting? Yes. And besides the unique storytelling method, I just love his art. I don't love the way he draws women because they all look exactly the same, but I can forgive him that for giving me a great, unique story. And that will wrap up everything I have been working on reading-wise this week. As always, guys, thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed hearing about my week in reading. I would love to hear about yours in the comments down below. Have a fantastic rest of your day, a great weekend, and I will see you in the next one.